Hey there guys, it's Brooke from Australia and welcome to my first YouTube video. So as you can see, I've got myself a Crane 2 here, and in my research before I bought it, I was looking high and low for heaps of stuff on Nikon cameras with the Crane 2 and I couldn't find anything. So being a Nikon shooter, or Nikon for those of you who can't pronounce it properly, haha, just kidding, I'm Australian, deal with it. There was just no Nikon cameras at all talking about the Crane 2, etc. So being a Nikon shooter, I thought I'd pull together a quick video of the different lenses that I've got and see how well they balance on the Crane 2 and how they feel and how they hold. So as you can see, what I've got at the moment on the Crane, and I'll just turn it on now, I've got my Nikon D810 and a 24 1.4G lens. Balances really well. It's a beautiful lens to be able to move around and to do everything with. It's a really good balance with the 24. Great depth of field, great width of view, etc, etc. In front of me, as you can see, I've got a few lenses here. So I've got my 85 1.4, I've got the 58 1.4, beautiful lens to still work. Haven't done a lot of video with it yet, but beautiful lens. I've got my 35 1.4, and then I've got the beast, the 70-200 2.8. So this is going to be the test, I reckon, for the Crane, because that weighs in about 1.5 kilos. Don't know what that is to pounds for you imperial people. But with the 810, just under a kilogram, that's going to knock it at 2.5 kilos. That's going to be pushing the upper end of the Crane 3.2 kilogram limit. What's going to be interesting to see is not whether the Crane can handle it, but what it actually feels like to manage. Shooting weddings, which is what I used to do, the 70-200 on the D810 was a heavy thing after a day's work. But we'll see how it handles with the Crane, because obviously I like to use the little the feet to hold it down so that you've got a bit of an extra leverage to hold onto it. Let's have a quick look at how the Crane handles with the Nikon 810 and the 24mm prime. As you can see here, it just beautifully balanced, works just great, does everything that we want it to do. This is just in the pan follow mode, so really handy. Lots of clearance so that I can get nice and low in my shots. I don't have to worry about banging. You can see I'm about to start taking the lens hood off there, and then coming straight up. Really no issues with it at all. So it really balances quite well. Some of the shots that I've done for a short film I'm working on out in the Australian bush uses this lens, and this is just beautiful. Really good. Doing some run shots with the gimbal. It held well. One of the shortcomings obviously is I don't have any way to control focus at the moment, although I do believe that the DHL man is on his way to me today with that mechanical follow focus unit. So stay tuned for an unboxing and a review of that as soon as I get my filthy little hands on it to have a play. But now we've said that, let's have a look now. I'm going to jump out of here, turn the Crane off, and I'm going to go and see if we can't get the 35 on there and balance her up, then the 58 and the 85. So the 85 1.4, as we can see, balances really nicely. Not too bad in terms of the heaviness or the weight of it. Really quite happy to hold. What I was talking about before, and you've probably seen this in videos before, I like to use my left hand here on the base of the tripod feet. Just helps me with a little bit of leverage, takes it off the weight of my wrist of my right, and really good. And what I'm hoping, so I have a little Lilliput monitor which I'm currently using to review what I'm shooting now. But what I'm hoping is I've got a handle coming to have my monitor here, and I'm going to have my thumb for the follow focus unit just here, that I can slowly move it around, and when I need to I've got my finger on the other side, if you can see here, that will be able to move that wheel so I can monitor my focus in and out, and I'll have my screen here. Because one of the things I find, the back of the 810, it's a little small for me to see what I want to see. Granted, I can zoom in to make sure I'm in focus, but I can't see my overall shot for composition. And also sometimes the back of the gimbal here, it covers the screen, becomes a little bit frustrating. So for me, having an external monitor is a must-have. Just having said that, the Lilliput A7S is what I've got. I don't have a lot of experience with monitors. As I said, I'm primarily a stills shooter, but this little monitor is fantastic. For what I paid for it, like maybe 200 Aussie, really impressive, great little size, gives me my aspect ratios, which is good, so I can see my output blanking to make sure if I'm shooting a 2:3:5:1 ratio or whatever it might be, I can see what's in shot. It gives me some safe areas for my final crop, and it helps me visualize the scene as it unfolds. So I've decided to skip the 58 and the 35, etc, etc. As you can see, they're all much of a muchness in terms of size. Their weight distribution is not crazy. They're not really long lenses, so in terms of balancing them, you're going to balance them fine. But in coming to the 70 to 200 2.8 lens, which is a beast of a lens, but to be fair, the system with the 810 is really front heavy. What does that mean? It means, ladies and gentlemen, it will not balance. So what I've had to do with the camera plate, I've had to pull the camera all the way back to the little base plate here and pushed it all the way back to try and get it to balance. And as you can see, if I let it go, still very front heavy, just trying to balance it here. So what this has done, it means two things. One, can't use the gimbal with the 70 to 200. Now some of you might scream out, why the bloody hell would you want to, Brooke? I agree, moving around with this lens is a hell of a beast. For me, I'd prefer to be, I think, more monopod or tripod base for static shots, or at least I can pan with my tripod. I don't think I'll be able to use a gimbal stabilizer with this. Granted, I have an 85 prime for a bit of telephoto if I need to, but if I'm trying to move too much movement there, I don't think I want that. The other thing I've noticed is having brought the camera all the way back on the base plate and the base plate all the way back into the base of the gimbal is I haven't got any movement, so I can't move that way, and when I come this way, there's an ever so slight little bit of the camera, which is actually the protector of the LCD, which I'd prefer not to scratch against the bit of metal, slightly scrapes the back motor here, just in here. I'm not sure if you can see that on the camera there. So that to me renders that the 70 to 200 is useless. Having said that, my understanding, and I'll be able to confirm this when it comes hopefully later today, come on Mr. DHL man, come on, is this little spot here. This is where the follow focus arm screws in, and it gives you that extension rod here that you can then have the unit on with the gear cogs. Now with the 70 to 200, for those of you who don't have this camera, this lens, sorry, this here is my zoom ring. The further one out is my focus ring. So the focus ring being so far forward, I don't actually think, and I can't confirm this, that the extension rod and the little mechanical follow focus unit that sits here, I don't think it'd be out far enough to actually run the focus ring on the lens. So I think it would be stuffed anyway in terms of just, it'd be manual focus, which for this lens, you can't touch a telephoto lens on a gimbal and try and focus it with your hand without things going all over the place. So what we might try now, I might try the 1424, because I'm dead curious to know if this bad boy is going to mount on it. Really big fat front element for those of you who know the lens. Let me grab out of the camera bag here. So this is the 1424. As you can see, mammoth piece of front glass, probably the fattest bulbous lens I've got. Nice focus ring here, a little 1424. Only a short focal length on this one, but I'm not going into a review on this lens. This is a magnificent piece of glass. If you shoot landscapes, or if you want some epic wide Scorsese style shots, go for it. This is the beast. I'm going to have a go on mounting this and see if we can get it balanced, because that will be very interesting to see what this is like on the gimbal, because it's a pretty weighty lens. We've got the 1424 now balanced on the gimbal, and it wasn't too bad to balance. A couple of things to be important to note though. I did have to change some of the balancing. These scenes all seem to have fairly similar settings when it comes to balancing. I just needed to move this right side here out a little bit just to counterbalance, because this is a very, very front heavy lens, very bulbous, and it seems to sit just a bit of a different weight distribution. The other thing that was interesting to note as well is, in order to be able to get access to the zoom ring, so the zoom ring on the crane here is this one here, the bottom one, and the focus one's at the top. In order to make sure, I needed to make sure that my little lens support foot underneath here was able to sit just between the focus and the zoom ring, so I still had the ability to move it. Otherwise you're going to be having to remove the balancing plate all the time just to change your zoom if you wanted to go from 14, or if you needed to come a bit closer into a 20. But I'm excited that it balances well and it feels good. This is a really exciting lens to shoot with for those stupidly wide shots. Got to be really careful, because the corners of the frame can be a little bit unfair with some distortion. This isn't a cinema lens, this isn't made for cinema. It's a stills lens. It's a fantastic lens when it comes to stills. Epically wide and ultra wide, stupidly wide, whatever you want to call it. Don't put a girl and her nose in the bottom corners, because she will never talk to you again. Her legs maybe, but she's going to look a little bit strange. As we can see here, just quickly bringing it up. It's got a nice little balance there, looks fine, does the job. Again, this is just in the pan follow mode, so there's nothing swinky going on here. Looks good, holds well, it's got a nice clearance so I can come down, get my shot if I want to be nice and low to the ground. And width, when you're wide and low to the ground, looks really good. The impression of movement is exacerbated because of the width. And then again, you've got the ability to adjust your pan tilt, and you're coming up for the shot, so it looks great. Really nice there. So that balances well. There's a few thoughts that I thought I might throw on with the Nikon. So I'm a Nikon shooter. I have a bag full of Nikon gear. It's from my time being a wedding photographer. I'm now hanging that up to do some personal projects. There's a short film on the way. Watch this space, but don't hold your breath. It's going to take a while to pull together. I'm a one-man band. Crane 2 with Nikon. Yes, you can balance most of the juicy lenses, as you can see in front of me. You've got the 24, the 58, the 35 and the 85. The 70 to 200 does not balance. Unless someone can prove me wrong, comment below, let me know, hit me up, I'd love to know about it. The 24-70 I haven't tested, but I reckon you won't have a problem there. And the macro, well, you're going to have no problem with the macro. It's a little diddler of a lens. It doesn't weigh much at all. Why did we all buy it? Because of this delicious little wheel on the side here that promised us that we'd be able to focus and do all those sorts of things. Do I care, having had a play with it, that I can't focus? No. Why don't I care? Well, let's have a think about it. Some of my lenses I might not be able to manually automatically focus with anyway, because they may be a manual focus lens. Will the follow focus through the camera work? No. I don't care what camera you've got. If it's a manual focus lens, it does not have a motor to focus in. So it ain't going to happen. So for me, the mechanical follow focus unit seems to be a much better option. As I understand, and I'll be able to confirm this once it arrives, it plugs into the gimbal and you can control this with the wheel. I've seen a few short videos on it. That's how it looks to do. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do a couple of things with it, namely that the sensitivity that you can change in the menu of the Crane 2 will allow me to have low, medium and high in terms of how much I have to turn this and how much it turns my focus. I also hope that I'll be able to set certain points on my dial that I can say, right, I know between 12 and 2, for instance, on the dial, gets me the focus I want. What else do I think? Look, the thing's a beast. I love it. Really nicely, solidly built. There's plenty of reviews on there. You don't need to hear it from me about why it's a good gimbal. It does work with Nikon. Works fine, except the follow focus doesn't work. I'm not too phased about being able to press record and all those sorts of things. I can press record button on here and then get my hand back into position and go. I'm not too precious about that. Anyway, that's enough from me. If you like what you hear, guys, first video, go easy on the criticism. Look, love to have you subscribe. As I said, follow focus units coming up. A few other things will come up as from time to time. Yeah, jump on board, throw us your comments, like, dislike, I don't give a shit. Speak soon, guys. Have fun. All the best.